Hello everyone. What I was showing you is using the Spectralis as sort of an external processor to create a paraphonic synthesizer using it and some other device. So right now I have my Access virus hooked up to the Spectralis 2 through the external inputs and have that routed through the low pass, the 24 dB low pass filter. What you're hearing from the virus is actually a very, very basic patch, but because of what you can do with it through the Spectralis, it sounds a lot richer. So let me just quickly show you what I have going on. So go into the filter bank setting and the external inputs. Right now they're routed through the low pass filter. So I'm going to turn that off. So you wouldn't hear anything if I did that. But if I throw them through the sum left and right, you should be able to hear the sound that they were that's originally coming from the virus. So I'll close that out and let's listen to it again through the low pass filter. Something I don't do very often is actually have aftertouch affecting the low pass, the cutoff frequency. Well, I'll see if that actually works, because all we have is MIDI out from the virus going into the Spectralis. We could do the same with resonance. Okay, I'll turn that off. So yeah, it's really basic how I set this all up. So it's just that basic patch. It's actually an initialized patch, and I just cranked the release for the filter and amplitude or amplifier envelope on the virus, and so the MIDI is going in, and so is the audio going into those external inputs. And you go into the volume in the mixing desk, and Oh, I'm sorry, you actually press the filter bank and then external inputs and just route them into the low pass filter. But what you have to make sure you're doing is that you set the routing to have the low pass filter activating trigger group 1. And I have VCO1 being activated on trigger group 1 as well. And that's how I created some of those interesting sounds. Well, maybe you won't consider them interesting, but that's how I created those sounds where I was manipulating it and you could hear some really crazy effects. So let me just kind of demonstrate that. It's actually on right now, but the tuning is so high up there you can't really hear the effect. Now you can start hearing it. So it's doing frequency modulation of the filter, but you're not hearing the oscillator itself. And you can sweep through that all you want. And changed its waveform. Right now it's just a sine wave. Here's a triangle wave. I'm going to turn the sustain off so you don't really hear it once I release it, so it's easier to talk. So let's hear that now. And actually, I'm going to turn off the delays. I think they sound great in here. They can kind of pan, stereo panning, and I only had one of them on. So let's hear this with the waveform set to a sine wave. You might be able to hear that sound. That is actually the low pass filter still kind of releasing, and I think you're hearing maybe the resonance. And let's see, and probably VCO1 modulating those. So if I turn the release off of that, I think it'll stop. Yeah, so now I don't hear that. Okay, so what we can do is, we were going through those waveforms. So we'll go up to the triangle. Now we'll go up to saw. And then rectangle. And if we go to our page 1, we can actually change the pulse width of that. And what we can do is use an LFO to modulate that. So and something I'm wondering, can we use pitch? Let's see. No, I was kind of wondering if we could use an envelope, and it doesn't seem like we can use that as a source. There's velocity, aftertouch, wheel, breath controller, pitch. I think that would just track. Yeah. So no, maybe I could figure that out someday, but I don't think you can. That sounds pretty cool, actually. So I'll turn that off for now, but that's one extra thing you can do here with it. So I think I explained it. So yeah, the sound goes through the filter bank. You push the external inputs. They're going now into the low pass filter. And I'm also activating, if you go to routing, I'm also activating VCO1. And I had to turn off it going through the low pass filter. So you're activating it, but it's not going through any filters. If I turn that up, you'll hear it. Which is actually a pretty cool effect. I use that with the SK30 a lot, where it has a paraphonic poly synth section, or it calls itself that, I think. Yeah, it says poly synth. And then I have on top of that the solo voice, which is kind of its own entire voice. I don't know how to explain it, but it's got its own envelope, and when you put them together, they sound really cool. And what I like to do often, the pitch is way off on that. What I like to do is kind of create a different pitch that it will go off of. So I think it's like a seventh. So if we listen to that, I mean, that sounds okay. Yeah, it sounds okay. But if we turn on the stereo delay, and we change the release time for that envelope, for VCO1's like envelope, and bring our virus back to having long releases. Let's hear what that sounds like. And you could take that now and create a sequence if you want. So we'll go in sequencer line 11. And we'll change the volume. BPM's pretty slow. Here's the problem. I don't have a MIDI cable going out and back in. So I don't actually know if I could do this. I am going to go look and connect a MIDI cable, because the problem is I don't know if I can simultaneously activate the internal synth engine and the external. So let me see. Okay. We will all learn at the same time. And I have to make sure the virus is on the same MIDI channel. It says 1. I don't think it's going to play. It isn't. So what you can do is you go into your main page, you hit shift. So select and then shift and the part, and we're going to set that to channel 1. So I don't think it's going to go. It is so it's sequencing trigger group 1, and trigger group 1, Oh, wow, that's such a shame. I'd have to really think through how to sequence that. The only way I think I could do it is if I said that channel 1 was MIDI part 1, But see, that is only now that would only be activating the virus and not activating the internal one. So I don't think that can be possible to sequence both the internal ones at the same time. So this is clearly a trick that's better for live playing. There are ways to activate both at the same time this way, but you would probably sequence your part and then you would have to sequence the internal sound. And I just don't think that's really going to work. So we've got trigger group 1. We could create a new group. And we have the target being MIDI channel 1, and we wouldn't hear anything. So if we just put in a bunch of lines, which of course is a little difficult because you can't copy sequencer lines, which is sort of a problem on this. So, I mean, if we played this, I think you'd hear both, but they might not be the same notes. Well, now let's see if anything's kind of coming back. They are. But these notes are not. There we go. I had the velocity set to 0. Okay, so that's a workaround. So we learned this in real time. That's a workaround where you can have 2 sequencer lines. One that's going to activate the trigger group 1, the internal sound, or the internal filters and the VCOs, and then you'd have another sequencer line that will activate your MIDI channel device. I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble to do this and you're going to sequence them together because you like it, that is a way to do it. So I think it sounds pretty good, and then you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. All right, well, now that we've got that, why don't we try something different, which is to say, let's route the sound, let's route the virus actually through the fixed filter bank, and then route that through the low pass filter. I know I've been doing a little, like kind of a lot of that recently, but I don't know how this will sound. I haven't tried it yet, but it's pretty easy to do. So while we're here, we shut off the external inputs going through the low pass. We bring them through the filter bank. Now, I think we might hear something with the oscillators and the filter if we push play. Okay, good. We don't. I wasn't sure if I'd hear some kind of sounds from that. But now we've got the sound routed through the filter bank. We need to route the filter bank into the low pass filter. So you do that by having the filter bank light activated and then sending that through the low pass filter. Now, I don't think we'll hear anything yet either. No. And the reason is we don't have any of the bands open. So let's just open the high pass. We'll push play and we'll open the high pass. I do need to make sure that the filter bank is activated on trigger group 3, so we wouldn't hear that. We need it activated on trigger group 1. So now I'm going to open up the filter. One thing I have to do here is I can hear the filter bank kind of opening and closing. You have to go to page 2 and turn its volume envelope up so that it'll actually kind of release, have a long release, and we'll turn the decay up. And we can also send the filter bank through the effects. I think I'd probably want to keep it going through the low pass before, because I think the effects will just go straight to the bus out, and it might sound really strange, but let's try it. I'm going to add some depth and rate to the stereo delay so it'll kind of pitch envelope it, or pitch LFO it. Now see, I can't play any of these notes because I am only activating the virus. You can't hear anything that I'm doing because I'm on this sequencer line 19. I'd have to be back here on the asynth part, and it should activate it now. Or not. I can't remember, so I'd have to think through where that's being activated. So it's going through the filter bank. It should activate when I'm on this part. Yeah, I turned it to a MIDI definition 1, so MIDI channel 1, so now it will work. Because I don't have the filter bank with a long release time, you're just hearing it kind of cut out. It's a little different than it was before, so have the release way up, decay way up. And you are also hearing that oscillator. So actually, why don't we turn on oscillator 2? And that will also play at the same time. So we need to have that go through the low pass filter. So I'll go through. Let's have those oscillators go through the filter bank instead of the low pass filter, which kind of makes more sense because now they'd be activated at the same time, or going through the same filter set. And I'm going to turn the effects off there on the filter bank. So all we'll hear is kind of the muted version through the low pass. And let's pan some of those frequencies and we'll listen to that as it's happening. Oh yeah, I always forget you can't do that once it goes through the low pass filter. That just won't work. So if we want to hear that, we actually have to pull the filter bank away from the low pass filter. So that's easy enough to do. Instead of sending the filter bank through the low pass filter, we'll shut that off. We're going to send it through the bus. So it should play. And we have to do I think we might have to do the filter bank bypass, but let's try without. Oh, guess we don't. So let's just turn off the oscillators right now and listen to the virus. And we'll have the effects activated. Now I'm going to turn the high pass frequencies down, kind of darken the sound. And we will also, let's have the attack really slow. So let's see how this sounds as a pad, and we'll turn the decay way up and the release. Oh, I have the low pass filter going. I'm going to turn that off. I think that's what we were hearing. And we'll turn those oscillators back on. We'll turn their volume down a bit, kind of match the volume of the virus. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. Maybe we can also just send it through the multi-mode filter that's got the 12 dB band pass, high pass, low pass. You can kind of select between them. So we'll just turn off the filter bank and route them through the multi-mode. And now we won't hear anything because we need to set the routing. They'll all be trigger group 1. We need to set page 2, the multi-mode filter. So that should be this one. I think it's set. So we'll turn the envelope generator down. Oh, maybe. Oh, we still... How did we have that go? Oh, the oscillators were still going through the filter bank, and I still had it set up. So now we won't hear that. Multi-mode trigger group 1, VCO 1, 2 trigger group 1. The oscillators should be going through trigger group 1. One thing that is not happening is the multimode is probably set up to be going through the low pass filter. So let's turn that off and go through the bus. We'll turn keyboard scaling up to 12. Let's have it go through the high pass filter. And we will also set the effects to go through. And let's do both of them this time. Let's see what... So the second effect, kind of not really set up as anything interesting. We'll set it up to 16th notes. So we got both of them going. Maybe we'll set it up to an even odder. Turn the spread up, depth way up, and rate kind of slow. And we will set the multimode volume to go for a very long time. And let's turn the cutoff to attack to be slow. Oh, we actually need to set it up so that the cutoff is kind of all the way down, and then turn the envelope amount up. We can set the volume of that to kind of be a bit slow too. All right, let's have it go through the bandpass. That sounds pretty nice. I think I like the low pass filter a lot, though. And let's go ahead and add the exponential filter frequency modulation. We have to make sure that it is activated, and it is. But we weren't hearing it because the oscillators weren't actually routed through the filter. So they were kind of going, and this is perfect. That's how we want it set up right now. So when I turn that up, we should hear it. And we do. So let's modulate that coarse tuning. And it's set to a rectangle wave. So let's just have it a sine wave. And we'll turn its tuning way down. And, I think, no, we don't have the LFO modulating the pulse width. And you can modulate even a sine wave's pulse width with this. So right now we'll set the pulse wave to 0, so it's kind of like a normal sine wave. I just kind of realized it's a shame you can't modulate the rate when you go up the keypad of the LFO. I'm not sure why you can't, but I guess one of the limitations, which isn't a huge limitation to me. I only just noticed it now. I've had this thing for over 10 years. We can, of course, change the LFO waveform. Here, we can set it to, I think it's random at 255. And I think all we're modulating here is the pulse width of the saw wave or sine wave. So you're getting just an incredible amount of modulation, so to speak. So the amount of stuff you can do to create a paraphonic synth, I think, is really pretty incredible. I mean, these things seem to go for about like $1,000 now, or US dollars at least. And they're really robust in the number of things you can do. You can just use it by itself, although I would recommend using a keyboard to sequence it from. And then you can do stuff like this, use it only for effects. Take a synthesizer you're kind of bored with, and I mean, it would be a lot to spend $1,000 just to route and create a paraphonic synth, but you could do it. To me, this sounds almost like the matriarch, or the Moog matriarch. Although, that's got a lot of it's different for a lot of reasons. Just how you can utilize it with mostly just the front panel. It's kind of like a one knob per function, where this isn't. There's some menu diving, but hey, if you have a Spectralis and you don't have something else like that Moog, you could make do with this. I'm guessing most people that watch this video have a Spectralis. Like, who's going to sit through 45 minutes of a Spectralis video when they don't own it? Especially one that's kind of like a niche video like this. But I really like how this kind of ended up sounding. We can turn that down a bit. Let's turn the feed up for the stereo delays so they'll just kind of go a lot longer. And there are pre-delays that we can use too for both of them. So let's add that in. And one thing you might want to do is actually change the note priority. That can affect how this sounds. So if we go from high to last, or low, so let's also have, so trigger VCO2 is going through trigger group 1. I don't think that it is, okay, so they're both going through the filter bank, which isn't going through anywhere, so you don't hear it. So let's set VCO2 to go through the multi-mode filter. Let's see if we can hear it. And hey, while I have you here, something else we could do is pan each of the filters, the low pass, the 24 dB low pass, and the multi-mode 12 dB low pass. We can pan them and have both filters activating and sending the signal out. So one thing we'd have to do is go back to the external input and send it through. And so I'm going to kind of do similar volumes. All right. So it should be going through both. Now the low pass filter isn't actually activated right now. So now it is. So they're both active. And both going through the bus. I'm going to pan the 24 dB low pass to the right and the 12 dB to the left. Let's see how that sounds. Might only, well, one thing we need to do is turn on, nope. We've turned on the virus going through both. I have oscillator 2 going through the multi-mode. Not oscillator 1. And so I'll send oscillator 2 through the 24 dB as well. And let's turn the effects 2 going through the low pass filter. And let's go and set both the multi-mode and the low pass to have a really long attack time. See how that sounds. Trying to get rid of some of the clicking that I hear. Usually have to increase the release time just a bit. I think I'm driving some of the volumes a little bit too much. Probably the oscillator, internal oscillators are going through a bit high or a bit hot. So, yeah, basically, you can you can take any polyphonic synthesizer that could be digital. Maybe you don't even like the sound of it that much, but you're like, hey, I've got it. Route that through a Spectralis. Send it through analog filters, which this has. Those the low pass and the multi-mode are analog filters. Send it through them. You can use the oscillators to modulate the sound without actually activating them. And you could do all the stuff we talked about for the last 50 minutes. And yeah, hopefully this helps some people or gives you some ideas of things you can do. And I think, oh, okay. So you can, I guess that you have a filter pan page for both the filters. Let's see if that actually works. I've never been on this page. So you have to turn the effects off because otherwise, oh, I have to go into their pages, turn off the effects. Oh yeah. So, right. So I guess you go to this page to change the filter panning. Yeah, I think actually the sound from the virus is kind of a bit hot getting into this. So that could be where some of that distortion comes in. Anyway, I hope you learned something, and I can do some other videos when I have the motivation. And yeah, sounds good. Thank you.